What's going on, everybody? On my main Zera WoW here, ready to bring you yet another big time video, another big time review, going over some classes. I just want to apologize because these are not traditional guides per se. These are just reviews. I'm going through these classes one by one, these specs one by one rather, and I'm giving you guys hands-on evidence, hands-on numbers, and just an overall, idea of what to expect from each individual spec going into Legion. We're sitting right at about a month away from release, so thumbs up on these specs so far. Everything seems to be pretty solid. Obviously, the numbers are going to get tweaked, and that'll eventually happen. Matter of fact, they just came out with a new patch update yesterday, so you guys might want to get on MMO Champion or WoWhead.com. Check those out. I'll put the link in the description below. But anyway, let's get it on. Starting with the Feral Druid. Let's go ahead and start with Feral Druid Mastery, as we always do. Razor Claws, ain't no big surprise here. This increases the damage done by your cat form bleed abilities by 25%. So that's pretty straightforward. Everybody knows that's even looked at a Feral Druid knows that they're all about their bleed damage. They're all about their bleed damage. Ins and outs, ups and downs. It don't matter if you look at it sideways, inside out, outside in, upside down, right side up, don't matter. They're all about them bleeds. So Mastery, pretty straightforward. Moving into the artifact weapon, though, we're going to have to do some reeling and dealing on this one. Starting with the artifact ability is Ashamane's Frenzy. A minute and 15-second cooldown. This is pretty awesome. Think of this as a way to just instantly get, a hell of a lot of combo points in an instant. Unleashes Ashamane's Frenzy, clawing your target 15 times over 3 seconds, dealing 77,000 physical damage and additional 230,000 bleed damage over 6 seconds. So it does moderate damage, but the bleed is what you're looking for, and also that 3 combo points. And there's the great part, it doesn't cost any energy at all, so you can combine this with, say, your opener. You can go Rake, Shred, Ashamane's Frenzy, boom, get your rip, and get the heck out. Kite for days. Because I'm going to tell you right now, Feral Druids, their damage has always been good. Throughout the entire beta, their damage has been pretty solid, but they are squishy. They're back to being traditional Feral Druids, how they were way back in the day. Not being able to stand toe-to-toe with, say, an Arms Warrior or Frost DK, but they can kite for days. Use their passive abilities, Predatory Swiftness, 20% per combo point to grant you a free Entangling Roots or Healing Touch. So it's going to be up to you as the player, and you have to develop some instincts to know, okay, when do I need to go ahead and heal myself, and know when I need to use that free Entangling Roots to root the target so I can kite for days on end. So keep that in mind. So Ashamane's Frenzy, great for building up combo points in the opener, or if a fight drags on and you're trying to put somebody down, this fight's been dragging on for a few minutes, you can use Ashamane's Frenzy to assist, giving you a burst of damage, a burst of combo points to assist you replaying that rip and getting the range. Alright? Moving on, Shredder Fangs, increases damage dealt by Shred by 15%. Terror Flesh, increases damage dealt by Rate by 21%. Protection of Ashamane, this right here is probably the nicest talent on the entire artifact tree for Feral Druid. When I saw this, I was like, man, this is awesome. When you shapeshift out of cat form, you gain a 100% increased dodge chance and armor for 5 seconds, or until the shapeshift back into cat form can only occur once every 30 seconds. So that essentially means you can just go ahead and, that pretty much puts the stamp of approval on Restoration Affinity, because Swiftman's cooldown is 30 seconds, so if it takes you, if this only occurs every 30 seconds, so that's perfect. Every time you shift out to do Swiftmend, you'll always gain, protection of Ashmane. So if you want to just train yourself to know that, hey man, that's perfect. I mean, I'm not saying you can't shift out of cat form except for those, every 30 seconds. I'm just saying, gives you a good reference point. Say, okay, I'm going to hit Swiftmend because this automatically take you out of cat form, and you'll know without a doubt that, say, okay, I've got this dodge chance, so if I'm facing melee attackers, I'll be fine. I can do a quick Swiftmend, do a quick rejuve, boom, I'm right back in cat form. But if you need to, like, kite and get out and do a healing touch or something, that's fine. Ain't no big deal about that. But it's just good to know that this is a point of reference. You can actually look up here and say, oh, look, Swiftmend, boom, okay, this is about to come off cooldown. I'll know that you already know protection of Ashmanes are going to be up too. So just a good reference point. Feral Power increases the critical strike chance of Shred. Bleed damage will no longer cancel Entangling Roots early. So there you go. That's what I was just talking about, your Entangling Roots. The biggest thing about Feral Druids is just working up that instinct, working up that that ability to read into the situation and know exactly what class you're facing, what spec you're facing against, and whether or not how much you're going to need to kite, and how often you're going to have to get those combo points to come up faster and faster and faster. Because certain classes, like say rogues for example, subtlety rogues especially, they can get on you and they can stick to you like glue. So with Vanish and also Cloak of Shadows, they got a lot of ways to reset the fight and avoid your roots. So just make sure that you know exactly when and when not to use this, because you don't want to waste your root, obviously. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to waste it and then have to be, well, crap, now I got to build up a whole fresh set of combo points, which means you got to be in melee range to do it. Unless you take Lunar Inspiration, which, you know, I don't think any druid's worth its salt is going to take that. So, and you can play that way and just be a, you know, semi-ranged feral druid, but I don't think I've ever seen that be really effective. Because I mean, you're going to come in and reapply your rip and rake anyway, so. It's up to you, man. It's your call, but I'm just telling you, Hardened Roots is a must-have for playing this spec now. Alright, increases damage dealt by Brutal Slash by 21%. This is normally Swipe, but since I've taken Brutal Slash in the talents, it's 21%. But normally this is Thrash, 21%, or Swipe rather. Swipe. We still have Thrash. It's Swipe that it replaces. Normally this is Swipe by 21%, but now it's Brutal Slash. Okay, so Honed Instincts increases the duration of Survival Instincts by 3 seconds, always nice. Thrash has a 25% chance to release part of Ashamane's soul, causing nearby enemies to take 51,000 shadow damage over 2 seconds. So, I don't understand why this affects Thrash, especially on such a low, you know, proc, because, I mean, that's kind of similar to the rest of Druid's Wild Growth proc, 25%, but, like, Thrash costs a ton, and it doesn't really do a great deal of damage. So the only time you're ever really going to use this is if you've got an Omen of Clarity proc, and you know you've got a free ability to use, so you want to go ahead and use Thrash to get that extra DPS from an extra bleed getting stacked on. That's about it. And for this to be only a 25% proc, I'd like to see this get reworked. Maybe reduce it down to, you know, 10 or 15% and make it apply whenever, you know, I'd say Rake is applied. I'll just, you know, I mean, because you're only going to use Rake one time, you know, whenever you first initially get your bleed, and then you're just going to reapply it every time you get your bleed. Or if you're using your Incarnation to get those stuns off, or you're trying to get an opener to get a stun off. I mean, but you're not going to be spamming it, you know what I'm saying? Because you're only using Shred. So, I think that would be better. Make it a lower proc and then make it Rake, but that's how Blizzard designed it, so we're just going to have to deal with it. Just make a mental note that this is an opportunity, so if you're, you know, hurting for DPS, and you know, you're willing to try anything, try Thrash, man. Maybe you'll get lucky. Attuned to Nature increases healing done of Healing Touch by 45%. This can actually get buffed up to 90%. So if you want to be one of those feral druids that wants to try and be more tanky and just heal for days, then you can put, you know, 3 points into this and increase your healing of Healing Touch by 45%, which would probably make it somewhere in the neighborhood of about 250,000. So if you want to do that, that's up to you. I personally wouldn't bother. I would much rather put points into, say, you know, Brutal Slash by another 21%, or possibly even, you know, increasing the damage you deal with King of the Junk Incarnation by up to 30%, would just be astounding, considering that it lasts 30 seconds. So that's up to you guys, man. But you guys can dance around on this one. If you want to use this, you can. If you don't, it's up to you guys. It's up to player preference. This is the one thing about the Feral Druid you guys are going to notice, that it has a ton of options for you. Almost everything in this tree is like, it's really nice to put points into. I mean, look, increased damage of Rip, critical strike damage done, a ferocious bite. You know, increases damage of Rake. That includes your bleeds, the bleed damage that Rake does. Look at this, the critical strike chance of Shred, 30% crit chance, like on top of your 20% that you get with your stats and from your gear. Or your stat template, rather, they're calling it now. There you go. That's 50% chance to crit with Shred. Now, granted, your melee abilities don't hit as hard as they used to. It's your bleeds are going to be doing everything. So, the days of Feral Druid standing toe-to-toe and just mauling away, that's out the window. But, again, for PvE, it wouldn't be a bad idea, because you could take, you know, Omen of Clarity from the talent trees and take, what is that called, Soul of the Forest, and then just spam the crap out of a ton of shreds. I mean, I've had DPS meters just through the roof taking that spec, and then just reapplying, just have Ferocious Bite, just reapply the bleed on Rip, and never have to worry about reapplying your bleeds except for Rake every 16 seconds. Just swipe or Rake, and then just shred Ferocious Bite, shred Ferocious Bite. and just do that. And just do that over and over and over and over and over. And use Blood Talons to reapply Rake and 1 extra Shred. It's up to you guys, but I mean, it's all down to player preference. If you want your bleeds to do all the damage or you want to do all physical damage. Now in PvP, I'm going to go ahead and make it a point that if you're going to put points in anything in this tier, you're going to want to either buff Incarnation or you're going to want to buff something like, say, Rip's damage. Your bleeds, like your big bleeds, like either Rip or Rake. Those are going to be the ones you're going to want to buff because your bleed damages are going to want to, are what's going to do like 75% of your damage in PvP because you're going to be kiting mostly. Unless it's a caster, which you would be able to, you know, get in their face a lot easier, but without having to fear or getting, you know, globaled in a stun or something. Whereas in melee, you get caught in a Fist of Fury, or you get caught, you know, with an Enraged Warrior, a Fury Warrior especially, or an Arms Warrior with his double Mortal Strike combo. Yowza, it's gonna hurt. So just be keeping that in mind. Open Wounds, Fangs of Ashamain tear deep into your target, causing your attacks to ignore 15% of your armor while Rip is active. Obviously, Rip is your biggest damage dealer. You're going to make sure that it's up at all times. This is just another caveat to that to ensure that it stays up all the time. So, moving on. Ashmain's Energy. Tiger's Fury generates 15 energy every 1 second for 3 seconds. So, this is just buffing the energy gain that you get from Tiger's Fury. It already gives you instantly 60 energy, and it can come off cooldown every 30 seconds. And if you spec into PvP, as long as you keep interrupting spellcasters every 15 seconds with your interrupts from Skull Bash, you keep getting this off cooldown. So this essentially can be a 15-second cooldown, and it lasts 8 seconds already. So this can be up quite often. So it's up to you guys. I personally wouldn't put any points into this because, I mean, you already get 60 energy. That makes it 75 energy. Actually, that's 15 energy per second for 3 seconds. So that's another 45 energy. That's 105 energy, dude. So unless you took Moment of Clarity in the talent trees, which gives you additional 30 energy, that's more than an entire energy bar. And I very highly doubt you're going to be spamming that many abilities, because again, you're not going to be like in somebody's face. And besides, most Feral Druids, I mean, the energy is nice, but most Feral Druids go for Tiger's Fury for the damage bonus. So they can reapply their bleed, 15% more damage, and scooch on out. That's really what most good Feral Druids are looking for. But the energy cost is always nice, but again, not as good as the rest of these in here, especially the one that increases Rake's damage and Rip's damage. Moving on to the next one. I've already shown this one, just a glimpse of it. King of the Jungle, Incarnation. This actually applies to Berserk by default, but since I took Incarnation and the talent trees, it actually replaces Berserk. Now don't freak out, because it doesn't traditionally replace Berserk. Berserk just got added to its mechanics, so that's really all it is. It just, the Berserk button's gone, and it's replaced with Incarnation, but if I pop Incarnation here, you'll see Berserk is still there. Damage increased by 15%. That's coming from Feral Instinct and the Artifact Tree, but Incarnation does the exact same thing that Berserk used to do, but it also has an additional mechanic, such as the fact that Shred and Rake deal damage as if Stealth were active, and you can use Prowl in and out of combat. So, there you go. It's just a buff Berserk. And it lasts twice as long, so instead of only lasting 15 seconds, it lasts 30 seconds. Hella nice. And it costs no energy too. So moving on. So buffing this would be really nice. Each target hit by Thrash reduces the cost of your Brutal Slash by 2 energy for the next 4 seconds. So if you got a whole swarm of people and you want to, and you got a free Omen of Clarity and you just want to thrash real quick, if you hit, you know, let's say 2 energy next 4 seconds, if you hit 10 targets, Brutal Slash is gonna be free. Basically, but there's almost never that amount of people. I mean, PvE, you could time this right and basically have free Brutal Slashes, which they're only 20 energy anyway, because I took it in the talent tree. But this also applies to Swipe, so the same goes for Swipe as well. So just keep that in mind. It's just something to, you know, keep in the back of your head. A lot of these artifact traits are something like this one and this one. You're like, man, that involves Thrash, man. I'm not gonna really spamming that very often, unless you spec Moment of Clarity, or you get lucky enough to see an Omen of Clarity pop up, and you're like, okay, like you mentally had enough time to react to it and say, okay, boom, I can consciously come down here and hit Thrash. Hopefully I'll get this to proc, and I can use this to my advantage for, you know, Brutal Slash, which is none of my bars. So just something to keep in mind. Getting these all memorized and using them to your advantage in PvE is going to be difficult, in PvP even more so, just because everything has to be that much faster. Everything's just split second faster in PvP, because if it's not, I mean, that's why guys do everything they can to get VPNs updated and everything, because latency is everything. that half a second you get that you're faster makes all the difference in the world. So getting these memorized will help you a ton. And, you know, depending on which points you put in, what relics you put towards what ability, is going to basically justify how you play your Feral Druid. Just how it is. If you want to put more points into Ferocious Bite, be one of those Feral Druids that, you know, burns through, you know, 4 or 5 shreds with Moment of Clarity for free, and then boom, you hit them with a Ferocious Bite basically every 4 or 5 seconds. That's okay, that's cool, you can do that. I personally wouldn't recommend it, and I'm pretty sure a lot of Feral Druids wouldn't recommend it, because they're so squishy right now, but again, player preference, it's up to you guys. Moving on, we already talked about this just now. Increase critical strike damage of Ferocious Bite by 21%. You can buff this up to 42%. I mean, Ferocious Bite already does 76,000 damage baseline, but it gets increased by up to 100% if you have 25 additional energy on top of the minimum 25. So if you've got a 50 energy in your energy bar and you hit this, it hits for double, 150,000 baseline. If it crits, 300,000 generally, but then that's going to get buffed by another 21%. So now you're looking at about close to 400,000 one Ferocious Bite. Hell yeah, love that. Especially when we're only walking around with 2.2 million health in PvP right now. So it's up to you guys. But I personally would rather put points in, you know, my rips or my rakes, because I want my bleeds to be ticking more and more and more. And you'll see why here in a minute. I'll explain in the talent trees. Moving on, Ashmane's Bite. Your combo point generators against targets bleeding from rip have a 10% chance to awaken Spirit of Ashmane, which inflicts a shadowy duplicate of that rip on the target. So your combo point generators, not rip itself. Don't confuse this. It's not 10% chance when rip's applied, it's your combo point generators. So your rakes, your shreds, your brutal slashes. Abilities like that have a 10% chance to apply basically a second rip onto the target. Except now it does shadow damage as opposed to bleed damage. There you go. All day long. Love this ability. This actually procs a lot, especially if you take Moment of Clarity or Soul of Forest. You can just be spamming through shreds like you wouldn't believe, and this just procs non-stop. So again, player preference. If you want to be that kind of guy that goes in and bashes, you know, shred off the global cooldown, that's cool. Or if you want to be that Feral Druid that goes in, reapplies Rake, does a couple of shreds, gets out of range, comes in, a couple more shreds, rips, and then uses, you know, swiftness to get a free entangling roots off. All good, dude. Do it for days. Alright, that does it for the artifact tree. Moving on to the talent trees. I don't know, why is it called talent trees all of a sudden? Okay, so looking at this, top to bottom, left to right, Predator, Blood Scent, Lunar Inspiration. Predator, this is pure leveling. If you're a Feral Druid and you're leveling, take this, dude. Take this all day. I can't lie. I do this on my Feral Druid when I was leveling on the beta. I leveled him up to like 103, 104, and this was just gold, dude, for real. Like, I could part the Red Sea with this talent. I'm not even playing. Because you go in, open up, as soon as you get done spamming, you know, your Rake, a couple of shreds, get your Rip applied, you're down to like almost no focus, or for no energy rather, hit Tiger's Fury, do it all over again, target dies. Target dies. I mean, most, of course, they have the whole level scaling now, so everything's your level. You'll kill everything before it comes out of a stun. Seriously. If you use Tiger's Fury properly, you'll die before it comes out of a stun. And as long as it's got a Rake applied, Tiger's Fury comes right back up. And you can just wreck mobs all day long. You could actually, no kidding, you could actually take on 3 or 4 mobs at a time and just use Predatory Swiftness, root one, stun another, go back to the third one, boom, 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 he's dead. Move on to another one, boom, 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 he's dead. Move on to another one, and each and every one of these encounters, you're actually activating Tiger's Fury every single time. So it's pretty awesome. Blood Scent, though, I think is going to be the overwhelming favorite for everything else, PvE, PvP, on high-end levels. Once you hit max level, this is going to be your go-to ability. You can't pass this up. Your melee abilities in cat form have 10% increased critical strike chance against targets with bleed effects. I mean, if you just look at your artifact weapon again, you're just dying, because like there's so many abilities. Critical strike chance of Shred, I mean, you include that into it, and now if you put 3 points into this, Shred's now going to have close to a 60% crit chance every single time. So hard to say no to something like that. That's just glorious. Okay, so moving on to the next one, Lunar Inspiration. Moonfire is usable while in cat form, generates a combo point, deals damage based on attack power, and costs 30 energy. Okay, so let's look at this. It already does crap damage. Moonfire does 12,000 damage. So we'll go ahead and take this real quick. So based on attack power, right? Boom. Now it just jumped up to 144,000 damage over 14 seconds. Now you look at your rip. That's over 16 seconds. This is over 14 seconds. So this is almost like putting a, you know, anywhere between a 2 and 3 combo point rip up. And it's the cheapest thing, energy cost, in your entire arsenal now, with the exception of Brutal Slash. I mean, it's cheaper than Rake is. So, it's up to you guys. Rake applies 141,000. This applies 144,000. So, Moonfire actually does more baseline damage than Rake does. But Rake can get buffed by things like Blood Talons, Jagged Wounds, so on and so forth. So, Rake's still going to win out in the damage meters. But it's just nice to know that this is an option. If you really want to be one of those feral druids that can really kite, that wants to kite, like just never go in melee range, just kite all the time, you can use Lunar Inspiration. You can. Nobody says you can't use it, but I don't think that really fits the fantasy of a feral druid. And honestly, I personally wouldn't do it because it just doesn't feel right. It's really clunky. Your rotation just never fits. And again, feral druids were never designed to be range class anyway. So Bloodsend all the way, man. Can't go wrong with that all day long. This next 3 tiers, again, basically the same for all 4 druid specs. You're going to take Wild Charge as a feral druid. You just can't get away from this. You can leap on targets, but with your honor talents now, Rake has a 10-yard range and you automatically leap behind targets. So generally, most feral druids are probably just going to use travel form with this. Leap ahead 20 yards, and you can do it every 15 seconds. And basically, just that'll help you kite for days, man. Just help you kite for days. Displacer Beast is good, but honestly, that's a resto druid ability that's not going to be used by feral druids. Now you can use Renewal, and there are probably certain comps in arenas or possibly duels that you're probably going to want to have this for, you know, really bursty comps. But honestly, I think Wild Charge is still going to win out, especially in, you know, standalone duels or PvP. I can see how in arenas you might want to take Remy Renewal, but got to say Wild Charge is probably going to be the overwhelming favorite here. As far as these go, Balanced Affinity actually is pretty dope. If you think about it, because I mean now you got like 10-yard range on your bleed ability, so you don't even really have to go into melee combat at all. You just go in and you're out again. So it's up to you. I personally wouldn't do it. Again, that just doesn't feel right. Besides, especially if you take Pouncing Strikes, it's always going to put you in melee range anyway, or Feral Charge, or rather Wild Charge. Either one's going to put you right in melee range. So basically, you just wasted this. So I honestly think every feral dude is going to go Restoration Affinity, just the ability, just because we talked about it, using your artifact weapon every 30 seconds you can come out, just pop a Swift Bend, and you got a 100% dodge chance for 5 seconds, and increased armor for those 5 seconds as well. Can't go wrong with that. But if you got a pocket healer though, you'd probably be better off going Guardian Affinity, just for the fact that you take 10% less damage, because feral dudes are really squishy right now. So if you take Guardian Affinity, you've got a chance to heal yourself with Frenzied Regeneration. Not to mention that, but you've also got a chance to, you know, reapply Thrash from bear form, because Thrash actually generates rage in bear form. So there you go. So this is a great choice if you have a pocket healer. Otherwise, just take Restoration Affinity. Can't go wrong with that. Especially if you're, you know, doing standalone PvP or in duels. Definitely gonna need Restoration Affinity. You'll get destroyed otherwise. Okay, so this next tier, used to druids could take Typhoon because they still had things like, you know, Cyclone. They could Cyclone off a Typhoon or whatever. But since they don't have Cyclone anymore for feral druids, I think you guys are going to be pretty hard up, and you're going to take either Mass Entanglement to help you kite more, or take Mighty Bash. Mighty Bash is really good because since you really don't have any alternative means of CC besides Maim, I mean, you can't go wrong with Mighty Bash. Now, granted, a lot of your stuns, you know, obviously stuns are going to share DR. So the only time Mighty Bash is ever going to come in handy is if you need like a half-second stun to interrupt the spellcast, or if something like, say, a rogue jumps on you and you're already in the middle of a fight, you can stun the rogue off for 5 full seconds and don't have to worry about having to build up combo points again for him, or whatever, or waste combo points on an alternative target. So that's another time and place that Mighty Bash would win out. So it's going to bounce between Mass Entanglement and Mighty Bash. I don't think any feral druid, I mean, obviously, depending on the comp you're running or the map that you're in, or in arenas or BGs, you can have a lot of fun with Typhoon. But I think Mass Entanglement and Mighty Bash are going to be the overwhelming favorites here. Mass Entanglement would come in handy in those moments where you need an instant root, but say you don't, you know, Predatory Swiftness didn't proc this time, like say you had to like get this bleed off, you had to, but you only had 4 combo points, and you know, Lady Luck was on your side, and you got a 20% chance that it didn't proc, and it just didn't proc. So that's a good time for Mass Entanglement to come in handy. So again, up to you guys. I personally would switch back and forth to these just depending on the circumstances and what I'm dueling or what I'm facing, what I'm BGing, what combo I'm BGing with, if I have a healer or not, all this good stuff. Because this can also, Mass Entanglement can come in handy when you're trying to peel for a healer too, so that's great also. Alright, so in the next tier, I think almost every Druid is going to go Incarnation. Just, it's been the go-to ability for an entire expansion now for Feral Druids. I mean, every Feral Druid used Incarn. Every Feral Druid did in Warlords. I don't think I ever saw a single Feral Druid not taking Incarn. But you're like, Zera, what about Savageur? Well, Savageur was actually a good option until last night because they came out with a patch update that increased the focus cost, or the energy cost rather, from 15 energy to 40 energy. Or was it 25 energy? Anyway, it was much lower than 40, making Savageur somewhat manageable. But now, if you take Savageur, I feel sorry for you because you got to reapply this thing every 24 seconds. And you got to spend half your, I mean, unless you take Moment of Clarity, obviously, but you got to spend half your focus on it, and there's no real way to manage it without taking a Loon's Guidance. So that forces you to take a Loon's Guidance, which means you miss out on two great abilities in Jagged Wounds and Sabertooth. I mean, you're just so forced to play certain ways. I don't like that. But, I mean, if you want to, you can take Savageur with a Loon's Guidance and go Moment of Clarity, and basically keep Savageur up at all times, which would be better off in the long run than Incarnation. But honestly, your bleeds are going to do most of the damage anyway, and your bleeds are going to tick like time bombs with Jagged Wounds anyway, and you can team up your bleeds with Blood Talons, which will make your bleeds be 15% more damage than they would do with Savageur. So there's different ways of doing this to get even better results than doing this. So again, it's up to the player preference, but I'm almost 110% certain that most Feral Druids are going to go Incarnation. I personally don't like long cooldowns, so if you were to ask me, now remember, I don't main a Feral Druid. I've done all these tests, I've done all these different combinations. I didn't like Savageur, it just felt too clunky. I mean, I know it couldn't be a baseline ability anymore like it was. I mean, Feral Druids didn't really have to worry about it reapplying it because it was 40-something seconds anyway whenever they got on a target with Rake. So it didn't really matter with the glyph. But now that it's a talented ability, you gotta say adios to Savageur and either go Soul of the Forest and Incarn. I personally love Soul of the Forest because you can actually take Soul of the Forest with Moment of Clarity and combine this. I've actually done this. So you build up a bunch of combo points, right? Moment of Clarity just procced, okay? But you just got done spamming like 2 or 3 shreds off. Well, guess what? You're down to like no energy. But you got 5 combo points. Well, you know what you can do with that? You can literally hit any finishing move and instantly, boom, get 60 energy free. So you just used a huge finisher, but you just gained 60 energy for free. You didn't spend a dime on it because you didn't spend any energy because you used it when Moment of Clarity was up. A good combination, but more so for PvE and PvP because those situations, I mean, things change in PvP on the fly, dude, so you can't really be depending on this RNG proc all the time. Soul of the Force would still be good in PvP, but I just don't think Moment of Clarity is going to be viable. But we'll get to this tier in a minute. But anyway, wrapping this up, Savageur, too clunky, too difficult to manage. And it hurts you more in the long run than it would otherwise, unless you literally play into this spec right here, which I don't think any Feral Druid would even attempt to do. So let's just stick with Incarnation for now, and we'll go down to this tier right here, level 90. Loon's Guidance, like I said, immediately gain 5 combo points, an additional 1 combo point every 1 second for 5 seconds, 45-second cooldown. This is really nice, but the thing is that you're probably far better off taking Jagged Wounds or Sabertooth because they're mechanically better, more superior to Loon's Guidance. Because Loon's Guidance, yeah, it can really help you. It can actually push out a lot of heals. If you do this right, you do your Loon's Guidance, you can actually get 2 or 3 healing touches off almost within, you know, 2 or 3 global cooldowns of each other. Because you just hit a Loon's Guidance, immediately hit something into a finishing move, build up those additional combo points over time, another finishing move, and then you get maybe 1 extra combo point as you're leading up into that 3rd set of combo points, and you can get off within a few other seconds. You can get a 3rd healing touch. So as far as that goes, that can really help, especially if you combine it with something like Brutal Slash, because it's so cheap now, and it's, you know, you can have 1 combo point per target hit, because this is a AoE, and it gives you a combo point per target hit. So keep that in mind too. So these are a good combination right here. But again, it's up to player preference. I personally don't like it because it's just another global cooldown to manage. I would much rather just have my bleeds tick faster, or only have to apply Rip 1 time and then let Ferocious Bite do the rest. So it's up to player preference. But moving on to Jagged Wounds, Rip, Rake, Thrash abilities deal the same damage as normal, but in 33% less time. So instead of lasting, you know, was it 24 seconds? Yeah, instead of lasting 24 seconds, Rip's going to last 16 seconds now. Does the same amount of damage, but now it ticks so much faster. And you're going to see crits way bigger numbers than before, because it's ticking so much faster. This is glorious. I think every Feral Druid in PvP is going to take this. It'd be hard-pressed not to take this, especially if you go in and buff your artifact weapon, all your bleed abilities by like 42%. That would be just insane damage. Again, your whole mastery, talents, artifact weapons based around your bleeds entirely, so why not just build off of that and make your bleeds even better than they already were. But Sabertooth is a very attractive PvE ability. You can just apply a rip on a boss fight one time and never have to worry about it again, and you can just use this in combination with Moment of Clarity and Soul of the Forest and just spam the crap out of Shred and buff the mess out of Shred in your artifact tree and just let Shred and Ferocious Bite do all the work for you. And your bleeds, reapply a rake every 16 seconds, but you'll never have to worry about Rip again, because once it's on once, it'll never go off. All day. You can keep doing this all day long. I literally had no downtime doing this. But this is a pure PvE spec. I would not expect any Feral Druid in PvP to do this. I mean, I'm sure it's possible, but it's not going to be as viable as, say, going Jagged Wounds, Incarnation, Brutal Slash, or Blood Talons. I just don't think Moment of Clarity and Sabertooth are going to play that well in PvP. So, moving on to the level 100 tier, you got Brutal Slash, Blood Talons, Moment of Clarity. Moment of Clarity, we've already talked about all three of these in brief description, but we'll go in these in depth. Moment of Clarity now affects your next 3 cat form abilities and increases your maximum energy by 30. The extra energy is nice, and the Omen of Clarity is really nice, because I mean, you can get off some mean combos and build up some serious combo points in a hurry. But again, nothing too impressive about this. As long as you're, an experienced Feral Druid and you know what you're doing, you got your rotation down, and you get your timing down, you don't have to worry about this. Seriously. Because you're going to be kiting in PvP anyway, so your energy is going to slowly increase anyway. So, why worry about it? Plus, you already get free Omen of Clarity procs to begin with sprinkled in there from your auto attacks. So, this is really not necessary in PvP again, but in PvE, you can just do this and just smash. I mean, smash a raid boss. So, moving on to Blood Talons. Casting Healing Touch causes your next 2 melee abilities to deal 40% increased damage for their full duration. This is awesome, but I don't think it's going to be very viable. Well, it would be viable in PvP, but you have got to be very conscientious about how and when you do this, because you're not going to be able to just, boom, always be using Healing Touches, because you're going to be using a lot of Entangling Roots with your Predatory Swiftness procs. A lot of them. So how often are you going to get Blood Talons to even go up? Now, you can just completely, if you just completely negated kiting and just played in somebody's face all game long, sure, you could do that. But then now what are you going to do? You're going to want to buff your bleeds, right? Well, you apply Rake, sure, that's easy. Boom, it's the first thing. So now Rake's increased by 40%. But now you got to wait till you have, 4 or 5 more combo points to build up Rip. So how are you going to do that without expending that second charge of Blood Talons? So your best bet is to just apply Rake, apply Shred, and move on. Or if you get lucky, you can apply a Rake and then a Thrash if you get a free Omen of Clarity proc, and buff Thrash's bleed damage, and then boom, 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 reapply Rip. So, honestly though, I would personally like to see, if you're a Feral Druid and you're really considering taking Blood Talons, I'd take Sabertooth, honestly. Because Blood Talons takes care of the bleed damage in ways that Jagged Wounds couldn't really do. I mean, it didn't increase the damage, it just increased the frequency. But if you took Sabertooth, since you're not going to be able to use Blood Talons on Rip anyway, just let Ferocious Bite reapply Rip. And then all you got to worry about is just getting as many Blood Talons off as humanly possible. And taking Sabertooth would help that, because the only finishing move you're going to have to worry about now is Maim and Ferocious Bite. You'll never have to worry about reapplying Rip on the same target again. But again, player preference, it's up to you guys. If you want to take Blood Talons and really see those bleeds just tick faster and faster and faster, it's up to you guys, man. It's all up to you guys. I'm just saying, so far the Feral Druid feels like it has the most in ways of different ways you can customize and tweak and really change the aggressiveness or the the pressure you can build up against you know, your opponents. Feral Druids can go Smash Mouth in your face, just Ferocious Bite for days, or you can be one of those Feral Druids that goes in and just, you know, couple shreds here, a rake here, a rip there, out, kiting for days, healing up just a little bit off the side, come back, redo it again, or you can be one of those Feral Druids that comes in, pops Savage Roar, hits a Luna's Guidance, got Moment of Clarity, and you're just smashing everything you can as fast as you can to do as much damage, whether it's bleeds, direct attacks. It's all up to you, man. That's the great thing about the Feral Druid. And I gotta applaud Blizzard. I don't like the fact that if you take certain abilities, you're forcing taking others. But, I mean, with, you know, only 3 abilities per row, and there's only being, you know, 7 rows, you're kind of limited, man. So they've done a great job, I gotta admit it. So moving on to the last ability here is Brutal Slash. This is awesome. It replaces Swipe, which, you know, is kind of worthless, to be completely honest, as a Feral Druid, because it costs so much energy, and you're not really worried about AoE damage anyway as a Feral Druid. Now, if it, like, spread bleed damage all over the place, then yeah, sure, I'd love Swipe at that point. But as it stands, I think this is going to be the overwhelming favorite, because 1, it has extended range, so you don't have to be in melee range. It's an 8-yard range. 2, it's super low on the energy level cost. Super low. It's your lowest energy costing ability, and it does massive damage. This does more damage than Ferocious Bite does with 5 stacks. Okay? It almost does. Let's look at this. Ferocious Bite does 76,000, and if you had 25 extra energy, it does 150,000. It would have to crit to do as much damage as Brutal Slash is going to do. Seriously. This is absurd. Okay? So, Brutal Slash, just an awesome ability, so can't go wrong with this. I think this is going to be the overwhelming favorite, and also keep something in mind, that this is an AoE ability, so if you hit 2 targets, you get 2 combo points. If you hit 3 targets, you get 3 combo points. So if you time this right, you could get a full 5 combo points immediately. Like almost 2 casts of Brutal Slash, and you're full 5 combo points, which is awesome. Now think about this for a minute. For you Feral Druids out there that are duelers, think about this. What if, say, you had a Beast Mastery Hunter with all of his pets? Well, he's got Haiti, he's got at least maybe one Dire Beast out, his primary pet, and himself. That's 4 targets for you to hit with Brutal Slash. That's 4 combo points, man. And 1 cast, 20 energy, boom, done. 4 combo points. So now all you gotta do is rake or shred 1 time, and you got 5 combo points. So, or the same thing goes with Unholy DKs, man. Unholy DKs all day, same thing. All their skeletal minions and whatnot, there you go, man, all day. So, different ways. The Feral Druid honestly requires a lot of practice. I mean, it's going to take, it would take me several expansions to get as good with the Feral Druid as I am with my Resto Druid, because there's just so many different ways to play it, so many different approaches to different other classes you play, other specs you're going to play against, because everybody's going to counter a different way, so you have to adjust appropriately. So, I honestly am not the best at it. I mean, I've won most of the duels with the Feral Druid just because of the fact that I know how to manage my shape-shifting abilities and also know how to, you know, kite, because I kited with my hunter for years. So the basics I kind of have down, but as far as the overall just perfection of rotation and timing and everything else, and just naturally adapting, you know, on the fly with the Feral Druid, knowing exactly what to do, when to do it, I'm nowhere near that level of ability. But I know a lot of guys that are, a lot of you guys know who are, there are very famous streamers and YouTubers that are, so I'm just giving you an idea of what they're thinking when they looked at this, and what they're probably going to do, and what they're thinking when they look at all these different options. So, here's the talent trees, we've gone through them, let's bounce into the Honor Talent! Yeah! Sorry about that, that was a little over the top. Alright, moving on. You guys know all about these 3, they're the same. Again, DPS, you're gonna have to default the Gladiator's Medallion. I like what Blizzard's trying to do here with making these, but like, it's just, adaptation's just no good. It's just no good. You know, this hurts more than it does, because I mean, if somebody sees you use your trinket in a superhuman way, they're gonna know. All right, this guy's using adaptation, so I'm gonna use one of my, you know, less important CCs to make him proc it, and then you're already at a disadvantage because they'll use their most primary. Like I've literally seen rogues deliberately use a kidney shot to proc adaptation just so they can blind you out of it and reset the whole fight. I've seen rep paladins take Shining Force. They'll come in, they'll Shining Force you. You're disoriented for 6 full seconds. Adaptation will proc it into a full Hodge all day. So adaptation really cripples you as a player. So I think you're almost forced to take Gladiators from dying, because Relentless is a tank. That's a tank ability. That's for Guardian Druids, Prot Warriors, because for them to have 25% reduced crowd control, because a lot of them already have abilities to be immune to CC as it is. Guardian Druids with their artifact ability, Prot Warrior or Prot Paladins with their their Divine Steed, they have an armor attack that makes them immune to CC. So there you go. I mean, tanks already have the ability to be immune to CC, so Relentless is just glorious for them. As far as this next tier, Hardiness, while above 80% health, you take 20% less damage. If you've got a pocket healer, I'd recommend this, because they can keep you above 80% health most of the time, and taking 20% less damage is just glorious as a Feral Druid. But you're so squishy as it is, I would take Reinforced Armor, because this is like having a free Battlemaster trinket of old. Just that 10% health is really, really nice to have. Sparring is really nice, but again, you're not always facing melee assailants, so this is really, circumstantial. So I would think that most Feral Druids are just going to default to either Reinforced Armor or Hardiness, honestly. If they've got a pocket, they're probably going to stick with Hardiness. If they're running solo, probably going to stick with Reinforced Armor. Protector of the Grove, much like the Guardian Druid, this is garbage. I don't understand why this is even here. I mean, again, you could do it, maybe after you got done clearing a flag room or something. Heal up everybody real quick, and then, get ready for, more incoming attackers. But I can't possibly get away with the idea that no Feral Druid is not going to take Shape Mender. I mean, you get a 5% heal every 5 seconds, shifting into bear form, and then back into cat form. Dude, that's awesome. That's absolutely amazing. Now, Leader of the Pack is useful. Give me one moment, please. Leader of the Pack is useful, especially if you take, say, the whole Moment of Clarity, Soul of Forest approach and Sabretooth approach, and you just spam and shred off the global cooldown. You could seriously heal your buddies. You know what I'm saying? You could seriously do this. What would be really funny to see is if you got a group of like 3 or 4 Feral Druids that would go into a BG and they'd always run together and take this ability and all spec that same way. You could seriously keep each other up, because it's all allies. And if you've got 4 or 5 Feral Druids just spamming this off the global cooldown, just spamming shred because it's free, and you got Soul of Forest, and you just get more and more energy from each ferocious bite that automatically replies rip. So the only thing you ever got to worry about is rake every 16 seconds and then shred every other global cooldown. Why not, man? I mean, it would be interesting to see just how hard it would be to kill those 4 or 5 Feral Druids, because they would just never die. But again, don't think Leader of the Pack's all that impressive by yourself, because it doesn't heal you, it only heals your allies, and they got to be like literally almost within melee range. So this is useful if you're running with, say, another melee comp in an arena, but I think most Feral Druids are going to take Shape Mender just because it's a 5-second 5% heal, and we need enough heals as it is. Pouncing Strike is nice, 10-yard range on Rake, and it basically leaps you behind the target when used. I've actually heard arguments that this isn't as great as it looks, because, it's nothing like Shadow Strike or Shadow Step for a rogue, because it's a, 25-yard range, whereas in this is just 10 yards. So I've actually seen a lot of Feral Druids running Freedom of the Herd, because this makes Stampeding Roar what it used to be in Warlords, where it cleared all roots and snares from you and your allies. So that's really nice to have, especially for a Feral Druid if you were trying to stay on type of a target, or really trying to kite a target behind a pillar. And Primal Vitality, this looks great. When you enter Prowl, cast time, your healing touch is reduced by 100%, but it's not Predatory Swiftness. If you use that healing touch after you go into Prowl, guess what's going to happen? You're going to pop out of cat form. I'm dead serious. This pulls you out of cat form. So I do not recommend this at all. I recommend that if Blizzard doesn't change this and fix this to where you can actually use that healing touch inside stealth or inside cat form, either one or both would be preferable, then it's going to be either Freedom of the Herd or Pouncing Strikes. You just can't get away from these two as an option. This just feels very, very weak. Speaking of weak, Fury Swipes, total garbage. This doesn't even swap to, like, say right now, like I said, I got Brutal Slash. This doesn't even switch over to Brutal Slash. It stays swipe. I've tested this. It doesn't affect Brutal Slash at all, and this just isn't really worth it. However, Blood Trauma, depending on what comps you're running, if you've got a lot of stuns going around, then you can take Maim and really just maintain a really good rotation of crowd control. And then, but I think most Druids are going to take King in the Jungle when they're running solo or in BGs preferably, or especially in duels, because the fact that you get the increased damage on your bleeds and also you get improved movement speed. So this is really, really nice to have. Moving on to the next tier, Rip and Tear. I mean, when you look at this, you're like, man, that's awesome. But then you're like, man, does that mean I got to wait till I have 5 combo points to apply Rake? I don't think so. That's not happening. So this isn't really worth having. I mean, if you could time, say, Blood Talents with this, it'd be great. But again, like, what are you going to do when you get Blood Talents and you got to build up combo moves? How are you going to build up combo points? I guess if you took Lunar Inspiration, you can use 5 Moonfires and use Blood Talons on Rip and Tear. But honestly, I don't think this is worth having. Besides, it's a 1 minute cooldown. You can reapply Rake and Rip and Rake, you know, 4 times in the time this comes off cooldown. So it's not worth having. Fresh Wounds. Rake has a 30% increased critical strike chance if used on a target that doesn't already have Rake active. This is actually really good, especially if you're switching from target to target to target to target to target, just to spread bleed damage, spread the pressure around, put more pressure on the healer. This really comes in handy because it says if it's not already active. So you could let Rake fall off, come back, and maintain a 60% increased critical strike chance on Rake on every target. As long as you wait for that thing to fall off and then reapply it afterwards, you can keep this up all the time. So this is a lovely choice. You just got to train yourself to know, okay, I can't reapply Rake until it's literally fallen off, and then I can reapply it. Savage Momentum, I've seen a ton of Feral Druids running this, though, because of the fact that it is a... You can literally see a caster using an ability, and if you know beyond the shadow of a doubt, you can Skull Bash it, proc Tiger's Fury, and then charge him with Skull Bash, interrupt the spell, and then Tiger's Fury is already back off cooldown. And then you just got a free proc of Tiger's Fury. You know what I'm saying? This is really useful, and especially whenever you're facing, like, say, you know, something like LSD or something in the arena comps, where you're facing, you know, two classes that actually cast spells quite often. You can interrupt something. Either one of them you can bounce between either target, including their healer. So it's 3 targets you can bounce from to get Savage Momentum proc. Free Tiger's Fury. Can't say no to that. But guys, that basically does it for the Feral Druid. That's everything you need to know. My closing remarks basically boil down to this. You got a lot of opportunities here for different play styles, especially in PvE. In PvP, you really can only play this one way. Because I promise you, you get face-to-face with an Orange Warrior, and he's hitting you for, like, you know, 300, 400k every other 20, 30 rage. Bad idea. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to obviously be in stealth. So you're going to come in here, you're going to get your Rake applied, you're going to do a couple shreds maybe you get some lucky procs, get those combo points up, then you're going to Rake. See, there's your predatory swiftness at work. So now you just got to build up some instincts. What class you want, what class you playing, what spec you playing. Do you want to be able to get that healing touch off like so, or do you want to come in here and you want to reapply this? Let me just go ahead and build this back up. Do you want to end up coming in here and you want to use this for, say, you know, entangling roots, and come over here and say somebody's coming at you, you see them coming from a mile away, or somebody's trying to get away from you, you can go ahead and just root them, and then you can say that you can come back to this target, you go back to them later, whatever you want to try and do. If you're trying to peel for your healer, you pound on this guy, you keep him stun locked, whatever, and you come over here, you bleed him, and you come back over here, you can do the same thing again, just boom, just keep that guy rooted over there. I mean, it's going to be, you know, really difficult to get all these different scenarios, all these different mechanics, all these different well-timed, and I'm talking like you got to well-time these to be effective. But it just takes practice, guys. I encourage you to get out there. The Feral Druid is a ton of fun. It is a ton of fun. Just an awesome blast. I love this class. I love this spec. I mean, of course I love the Druid. I've played it since Wrath, but I've played mostly Guardian. Played Guardian all through Wrath, and I played Resto since Kata, so there you go. This is just an amazing spec. I've never really tinkered with Feral, but it looks very intriguing, especially now that they got rid of that stupid humanoid cat form. And I mean, look at this. Look at this. This is undoubtedly the best Druid skin they've ever done, dude. Without it, even better than Guardian Druid. I mean, my Guardian Druid looks like he just came back from, you know, Tiffany's Diamonds or something, because he's covered with jewels. I'm like, really? Come on. Like, this is epic looking. So anyway, that's all I really got to say, guys. The only thing that I want to really note is that, you know, you've got survival instincts, you got your defensives. It's on a 2-minute recharge. Last 9 seconds thanks to your artifact woman. You do have 2 charges. Remember, Stampeding Reward no longer frees you from roots unless you take Freedom of the Herd. So getting out of roots with this is not going to be doable. And they did take away power shifting. So you see my macro. I'll go ahead and show you guys the macro I was showing you guys just literally in the last video. This is supposed to allow you to power shift. Power shifting is now gone. So unless this is a bug, which I very much doubt it is, because we'd lost power shifting in the past, but they brought a patch in and it gave us, either incidentally gave us power shifting back and it wasn't supposed to, or the fact we can't power shift is a unfortunate incident and they're going to fix it. But right now you cannot power shift, so you know, popping dash and then just spamming in and out of cat form to just go for days on end isn't going to work anymore. At least for the time being. It may change, and if it does, I will be the first one to let you guys know. So just keep that in mind, feral druids. You can't really spam dash and Stampeding Reward to get away, but so you're going to be really smart on when you're going to use it. You're going to make sure you root your target first before you try and get away, and also ensure that if you're going to use things like Shadow Meld or Incarn to get in and out of stealth, make sure you're smart about it. Make sure you don't have any dots, okay? Or if you do, make sure you're quick with that rake so you get that stun off, alright? So anyway, that's it, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Love you guys. I'm going to keep bringing these reviews to you every single day for the remainder of the week. Tomorrow, we're going to jump on the Boomies. So as soon as the Boomies are done, we're going to move right into the Monks. Probably start off with either the Brewmasters or the Windwalkers or the Mistwalkers. I haven't really tinkered with Windwalkers all that much, but I do love the Mistwalker. I do love the Brewmaster. So be ready for those coming out in the next couple of days as well. Love you guys. See you guys in the next one. Have a great day. And I will see you in the next video. Peace.